Hi, everyone. Welcome to Target Value Design. The bigger question is, how do we manage the design process in construction? And we'll see conventionally that the design process is very sequential and not integrated. So the organizations are not integrated together. There isn't this form of what we would call integrated concurrent engineering, or people working together concurrently. And we see also, as we see here on the left, we have more rise in digital fabrication technologies and more rise in advanced building technologies. So how do we actually understand the implications and possibilities of these technologies? To do that, we're going to introduce something called target value design. To illustrate this, the game we've proposed is that you get to be on a team of 4 people, and you must open a new 4-star restaurant, right? So you have to work together to really kind of create this this new restaurant, and your restaurant needs an iconic dish. It has to be the dish that's going to get everyone there. So that means it must look nice. It must have very good presentation. It must have the right balance of ingredients that the customer wants. And in addition, it also must be at a price point that the customer is willing to pay for, right? So that is your job, is to design this wonderful salad for your new restaurant. And to get started, you need to take on one of 4 roles for designing your salad. So I'm going to walk through each of these, and you're going to get to pick one. Now we're going to have to kind of balance it out. So hopefully there's an even distribution. Otherwise, we might ask you to change. But at a starting point, we want to let you pick where you want to go. So here are the 4 roles. So first, we have the artistic chef. The artistic chef is the one that's responsible for the design and the aesthetic of the salad. And if you are interested in being the artistic chef, you can go to Zoom and take this, where your name is, and put an A in front of your name. So we all know that you want to be the artistic chef. And you'll have to be kind of moving some things around on Google Slides. So if you like that kind of artistic view, maybe that's the role for you. Next, we have the recipe chef. So the recipe chef, if you want to be the recipe chef, you can put an R in front of your name. So we know that that's the thing that you want to do. And so the recipe chef is responsible for the balance of the salad, including the weights. So if you feel like you like numbers and Excel or Google Sheets and the balance of weights, then you could try to go for the recipe chef. The executive chef here, which you can put an E in front of your name if you would like to be the executive chef, you're really about the process, about the optimization and the cost of the salad. So you'll have to think about the costs, and if that's you, then put an E in front of your name. And finally, the restaurant owner, if you want to be the boss, then you can put an O in front of your name. And your job here will be to kind of observe and review the process and give feedback to how they've done in meeting your objectives. I will say the restaurant owner is in the first round a little bit more hands-off than the other roles, but you will be the final decider in the end. So keep that in consideration when you're thinking about your different choices. Okay, so your task is to design a new salad. But this, again, remember, you're opening a new fancy restaurant, so it cannot be any salad, but it really needs to be inspired. So your inspiration today is that it's inspired by Starry, Starry Night. So that is your design inspiration for your salad. So artistic chef, pay very close attention to this inspiration. All right, so let's begin. This is how it's going to work. Round 1 is going to be a conventional design approach. Now, we don't have ESSIA in our phases for restaurants, but we do have a very structured process we'd like you to follow. And here, first, we'll start with the objectives. So what the customer wants. Pay attention. This is for everyone to know, and owners, pay attention closely to this. You need to design a salad that's at least 500 grams. The heavier, the better. Obviously, people like a heavier salad, but maybe not too heavy, so it's too expensive. The artistic design should be inspired by Starry Night. And very importantly, you must have an equal balance between the ingredients, plus or minus a small percentage. So the ingredients should be balanced. We'll talk about the ingredients in a moment, but there are 4 ingredients here. There are carrots, there's tomato, there's egg, and there's cucumber. So you need to balance between these 4 ingredients. And you need to have a good price. Now, what exactly a good price is, I can't say for certain. The owner will have to tell you at the very end, but we haven't established what a good price is. We just know that you need a good price. That's kind of what you've been told. All right. The schedule, the way it's going to work. First, we're going to start with the concept design. So we're going to send the owner and the artistic chef into the breakout rooms first. And so the artistic chef and the owner, you go into the breakout rooms. We'll talk about what you're going to do there in a moment. Then the recipe chef will join the breakout room next, and they have a task. And finally, the executive chef at the end. In between the recipe chef and the executive chef, there will be a design freeze. So a design freeze means that design cannot change anymore. Now it's the time for pricing, right? In construction, we call this the tender moment, when the tender goes out. But in this case, you are not allowed to change the salad anymore. You just have to provide the cost. And so that will be the design freeze at that point. All right, we're going to quickly now, Charmaine is going to quickly describe each of these roles for you. The owner and the artistic chef we're going to describe first. We're going to briefly describe the second two jobs, but because you're going to stay in the main room, we'll give you more information. So it's just meant to be a very short overview. We're going to move to round two, but before we do that, I want to quickly just discuss round one. I would guess for the artistic chefs, that it was quite difficult for you to know how much something cost or how much it weighed. And this can result through no fault of your own. With a very full salad, here was, I think it was group one, I can't quite remember, where their weight was 935 grams and their total salad cost was 472 francs. So quite the expensive salad that you'd have to pay for, right? But I would expect that for the artistic chef, it was hard to know how much you should put in or should not put in, right? You didn't have very good feedback from your other participants around cost and around also around balance, right? You had to make a lot of guesses here. Also, I'll note out that's a very generous owner. They've approved you, so great job. you got there, and you even got quite a big profit. Profit is 5% of your total cost. Which last week we talked about incentives, and you can imagine you're incentivized for costs to go up because that also increases your profit. So you want it to be as high of a cost as possible, but still have the owner approve for you to maximize your profit. It was also hard, I think, if you were the recipe chef, but it was very difficult to balance between the different weights, right? So here you might have a lot of weights on the cucumber side, but less so on the other ingredients or something like this. And in some cases, I saw some teams like Group 10, they had a reasonably weighted salad and a decent cost, and they were approved in this case. But the bigger point is that we don't have a structured process for you to follow to make sure that all of the stakeholders can provide their inputs and that the incentives are aligned and that you kind of have a goal that you work towards as a team. The process is very sequential, and it involves a lot of people working in isolation without collaborating. We talked last week about how important it was to create a contractual structure that enabled people to collaborate. And now we want to introduce the idea of target value design as a specific kind of design management approach that will enable all participants to provide their inputs and to reach the targets that you hope to reach, including the owner. So now with round two, we're going to introduce this target value design approach, maybe a different way to collaborate around the design of your salad. And we'll see if it works, if it helps you meet your targets a little bit better. So in round two, and this is a basic kind of overview of target value design. If these different colors represent the different costs of your carrots, you read in the literature about this idea of a target cost. So the target cost means that instead of starting with the design, just, let's make a design and then let's provide a cost at the end of the design. That's traditionally how architecture, engineering, and construction handles it. It says, what if we start with a cost? The cost should be what the owner realistically can pay. This is what their cost is. Let's set that cost as the target for the team to try to reach. And then let's design everything around the idea that we want to maximize the value for the owner by reaching that cost and providing as much of a good design as possible within that cost. So we don't have to get to the end of the process and start just pulling cucumbers and carrots and throwing them out of the design because we're not balanced or we're too expensive or something like this. So here's a simple example, whereas if these are the different costs, your goal is to kind of figure out what the new costs are, and maybe they're not exactly balanced either. That's to be seen. Like in this case, the carrot cost actually gets a little bit bigger, and that would be okay. But the overall cost goes down. And as we talked about last week with the IPD contract, that profit is then split between everyone. So everyone has an incentive to work together to reduce the overall cost, because their profits depend on the overall cost being below the target cost. So that's the basic idea of target value design. And now we're going to let you, instead of me talking too much about it, we're going to let you practice with the same puzzle you had before, the same challenge. So here's how it's going to work. The objectives are almost exactly the same with one exception. So the customer still wants at least 500 grams of salad. They still want the Starry Nights inspiration. And we still want equal balance between the ingredients. But this time we're telling you up front that the target cost is 200 francs. So the owner has informed us that this is the target cost that they would like to meet. And in round 2 in the schedule, we are also going to have a different schedule. So instead of a sequential schedule, we're going to have a much more collaborative schedule, but there are still specific things that need to happen. So first, instead of design, we're going to actually establish our targets, our target weights. So first, your first goal is to establish some weights so you know that the salad is balanced. The next step is to do a little bit of strategic planning. So this will be led by the artistic chef. Then you're going to do some process planning, and then the owner will give you a review. You might do a little bit of optimization, and then you'll have a little bit of time for iteration and improvements. I was just looking through the different groups, and it looks like every group has achieved a profit. They've achieved the weight targets, and I see some very nice salad designs as well. So the artistic part is there as well. So congratulations, all of you, for now successfully meeting your owner requirements. I don't see any owners that have rejected the salad either. So now we have, I think, met all of our aims and goals here. We made some ways of thinking about the connections between the game and the construction project. You've probably figured these out by now, but the artistic chef is kind of like the architect. And their original goal in a conventional design process is to design to the client's requirements. And in a target value design, it's the same. They're still trying to look out for the design quality. They're just doing it now in a more integrated way. The recipe chef is kind of like the engineer. So you can think of it as a structural engineer or another engineer. They work with the architects in the conventional round. They make sure that the building stands. And they do the same thing in target value design. So again, we're not changing their process. We're not trying to change their role. We're just changing the way that they work in collaboration with the overall team. You do see a big difference with the contractor or the executive chef, right? In the traditional process, they provide a tender or a bid at the end of the design. You have a design freeze, and then they provide a bid. And that bid is either, they look for the lowest bid, or in some cases, they decide that none of the bids are low enough, so then they go back and redesign. In the US, we call this value engineering, which is really, they just take carrots and cucumbers, they throw them out and just start cutting things out of the design. And you can also think that that doesn't enable you to make a very holistic design, right? When you were doing the target value design, the hope is that you're having a conversation about what are the trade-offs between cost and scope and what the design architect wants. But at the end, if you just kind of throw carrots out, it's because you're cutting costs or balancing the salad. This is not the best way to achieve the goals of the owner. And so the contractor in the target value process is really ensuring constructability. Can this be built for a realistic cost that we want to achieve on the project? And finally, the client representative. This is the biggest change in the process, I think, happens to the clients. Traditionally, the owner is very much, they just kind of interact at very sequential kind of points. They say, okay, we approved the design. Okay, we approve the cost. They're not interacting on a very iterative or collaborative basis with the project team. And in my experience from the integrated project delivery projects that I was on, it required an entirely new client representative who was engaged in the team the entire time. They had an office in the big room, which we talked about last week. They were always having conversations. They were giving feedback to the team on a very iterative basis. And it was a different role. And some of them, they didn't have people that were used to doing that. But once they got used to it, they could help ensure that these target values that they would set forth were met by the team, while also making sure the team meets their own goals of profitability for the project. So this would be kind of a comparison. I'll let you review these slides just for the sake of time, but we made some connections between what we see in the game and what we would see in a construction project. To summarize, we start talking about more advanced fabrication, more unique architecture. We're talking about more machines or robotics entering to the construction site in the future. These are more advanced tools. So in this case, on the left, you have more advanced design. And here on the right, you have more advanced tools and robotics. So we need to also understand what these tools are capable of producing during design. And we also need to understand the cost implications of these tools. And this is where target value design offers a very good opportunity to manage this process. So we have to balance these things, right, of cost, complexity, uncertainty, and resources with also this efficiency, human independence, technology, and quality. Now, there could be a critique made, and you could pay attention for your reflection assignment, because this will be something you have to talk about, the disadvantages of target value design. It could be that you end up just going towards cost and you don't balance this with design and aesthetic, and then you just create a very functional architecture. There are some strategies to mitigate that, but it certainly would be a valid critique of maybe why target value design won't result in the most unique architecture. So please be aware this is a management strategy that should be applied to the right project.